Have you ever felt completely exhausted by the actions of others? It is so easy to get caught up in what people are doing wrong, how they treat us, or what they might be saying behind our backs. But focusing on their flaws only drains your own precious energy. True inner peace doesn't come from fixing the people around you or trying to control their behavior, it comes from turning your gaze inward. Welcome back to Buddha Coha. In today's video, we will explore profound Buddhist wisdom that teaches us how to stop letting external noise disturb our internal calm. We will discover why shifting your focus from others to yourself is the most powerful life lesson you can learn. Take a deep breath, settle in, and let's embark on this journey to quiet the mind and reclaim your peace. Part 1: The Trap of the Outward Gaze and the Illusion of Perfection. To understand how to focus on ourselves, we first need to understand why we are so obsessed with others. It is a harsh truth of human nature. Finding our own mistakes and correcting them takes immense courage and painful honesty. But pointing out the faults of other people, that is effortless. It is a trap we all fall into, often without even realizing it. Think back to a piece of wisdom many of us heard as children. When you point one finger at someone else, 3 fingers are pointing right back at you. This simple saying carries a profound psychological and spiritual truth. When we are overly critical of the world around us, it is often a reflection of our own internal unrest. Sometimes, we harbor deep insecurities, unresolved mistakes, or unfulfilled desires. Instead of facing the uncomfortable mirror of our own soul, our mind plays a trick on us. It projects our discomfort outward. We become hyperfixated on the flaws of our neighbors, our coworkers, and even our friends, as a subconscious way to distract ourselves from our own inner work. But why is it so difficult to break this habit? It is because society has conditioned us to expect perfection, a standard that simply does not exist. We look at other people and silently demand, why can't they behave the way I want them to? Why can't they just be like me? The reality is that no one can be exactly like you, and expecting them to be is the root cause of your own frustration. People are fundamentally different from one another. We all come from different backgrounds, carrying different traumas, shaped by different experiences. And ironically, that vibrant, messy difference between human beings is exactly what makes this world so beautiful. If you look closely at anything made by human hands, there is always a slight imperfection. In science, they even have a term for it: human error. This nature of error is not a tragedy, it is the fingerprint of humanity. Once you realize that no one in this world is perfect, a massive weight is lifted from your shoulders. You stop demanding the impossible. But Buddhism takes this understanding one step further. It asks us to look at the struggles behind those imperfections. One of the central teachings of the Buddha is the concept of dukkha, which loosely translates to suffering, or the fundamental unsatisfactoriness of life. The Buddha taught that every single being is wrestling with this unsatisfactory nature. Everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. They have desires that are unmet, fears that keep them awake at night, and confusion about their own path. When you truly internalize the reality of dukkha, a beautiful shift happens in your mind. You begin to relate to others not through judgment, but through deep, shared empathy. You realize, just as I feel lost or unsatisfied sometimes, they are also suffering. Just as I make mistakes when I am stressed or hurting, they are doing the same thing. They make poor choices. They say the wrong words. They act out of anger. But when you understand that their negative actions are born from their own internal suffering, you stop taking it personally. You no longer feel the burning need to find faults in them. Instead, you redirect that energy back to where it actually belongs, to your own thoughts, your own actions, and your own healing. You step off the exhausting treadmill of judging the world, and you finally begin the rewarding work of nurturing yourself. Part 2. Compassionate Correction and Right Speech. Now, by hearing all of this, a natural question arises in the mind. Does focusing inward mean you should become completely detached from the world? Should you just turn a blind eye to every mistake your loved ones make and only care about yourself? I would say, absolutely not. Buddhism does not teach us to be cold, indifferent, or selfish. True spirituality is not about isolating yourself in a bubble of apathy. There are people in your life, your family, your close friends, your partner, whom you deeply care about. When the people you love most make mistakes that harm themselves or others, it is an actual act of love to guide them. You should care about their missteps. But there is a profound difference between judging someone to feel superior and helping someone because you love them. Often, when we see a loved one do something wrong, we choose the easiest and most reactive path to correct them. What is the easiest way? Reacting with anger. Using harsh words. Trying to correct their mistakes through frustration, intimidation, or guilt. But ask yourself, has anger ever truly healed a situation? Has shouting ever made someone genuinely want to change? No. It only makes them defensive, stubborn, and more likely to hold tightly to their mistakes. This brings us to a beautiful teaching in Buddhism known as right speech, or samavaka. Right speech means speaking in a way that is truthful, uplifting, and free from malice. Right speech is not just about the vocabulary you use, it is about the energy and intention behind those words. When you correct someone, are you speaking to prove that you are right, or are you speaking to help them grow? If you truly want to help someone, you must find the most productive, compassionate way to approach them. The wisest way to correct someone's mistake is to speak to them privately. Never humiliate someone in public or in front of others. When you speak to them in a private, safe space, you protect their dignity. Gently explain the consequences of their actions, focusing strictly on the behavior, rather than attacking their character. But here is the most crucial step, one that we often forget when we are upset. You must also praise and appreciate the good things they do. As humans, we have a psychological negativity bias. When someone does one thing wrong, we tend to let it overshadow the 99 things they do right. If we only look at the dark side of a person, a tragic thing happens. We lose the ability to truly communicate with them. We become so consumed by their negative traits that we forget their strengths, their kindness, and the very reasons we loved them in the first place. Think of it like a garden. If you only focus on the weeds, you will eventually hate the entire garden. But if you focus on watering the beautiful flowers, the garden becomes a place of joy. Pulling out a weed here and there becomes an act of care, not a source of misery. The more you focus on the bright side of the people in your life, the easier it becomes to approach them. When you appreciate their virtues, you build a sturdy bridge of trust. And once that bridge is built, correcting that one little mistake becomes effortless. You are no longer an enemy attacking them. You are a friend offering them a lantern in the dark. So, keep these points in your mind. Live happily by seeing the good in other people, and you will naturally maintain your own inner peace. Before we move forward to a powerful Zen story about a monk and a scorpion, I want to take a brief moment to thank you for being here. If you are finding value and a sense of peace in these words, please gently tap the like button and subscribe to Buddha Coha. Your support helps our community grow and allows us to share these healing teachings with more souls who might need a moment of calm today. Now, let us return to our journey. Part 3, The Story of the Monk and the Scorpion. To truly understand the power of focusing on your own path while the world around you reacts in its own way, let me share a timeless Zen story. It is a story that has traveled through centuries, offering a profound mirror to our own lives. Imagine an elderly monk, a man whose face was a map of 1,000 smiles and whose presence radiated a quiet, unshakable tranquility. One afternoon, he sat by the edge of a fast-flowing river, deep in meditation. The world around him was alive with the sound of rushing water and the gentle rustle of leaves. But his peace was soon interrupted by a frantic movement in the water. A scorpion had fallen into the river. It was struggling desperately, its tiny legs thrashing against the current, slowly being swept toward a certain death. Without a second thought, the monk reached out his hand, intending to lift the creature to safety. But the moment his fingers touched the scorpion, it instinctively arched its tail and delivered a sharp, painful sting. The monk flinched, and the scorpion fell back into the water. A moment passed. The monk took a breath, composed himself, and once again reached out. And once again, the scorpion stung him. This happened a third time, and then a fourth. Each time, the monk's hand was met with a needle of venom, and each time, the scorpion was cast back into the splashing waves. A traveler had been watching this scene from a distance, growing more confused and frustrated with every attempt. Finally, he couldn't stay silent any longer. He ran over to the monk and shouted, "Old man, what is wrong with you? Are you a fool? That creature has stung you every time you tried to help it. It is ungrateful and dangerous. Why do you keep risking your life for something that only wants to hurt you?" The monk looked down at his red, swollen hand, and then he looked into the eyes of the traveler with a gaze filled with infinite kindness. He spoke softly. "My friend, it is the nature of the scorpion to sting. It is its instinct, its way of reacting to the world when it feels threatened or afraid. But it is my nature to be compassionate. It is my nature to save. Why should I allow the scorpion's nature to change mine?" With those words, the monk picked up a sturdy leaf from the ground. Using the leaf as a shield, he gently lifted the scorpion out of the water and placed it safely on dry land. This story carries a medicine that our modern world desperately needs. Think about the scorpions in your own life. Perhaps it's a boss who criticizes you unfairly, a neighbor who spreads rumors, or a stranger online who leaves a hateful comment. Their behavior, the stinging, the negativity, the malice, is a reflection of their own internal state. It is their nature at that moment, often born from their own fear, pain, or ignorance. The trap we all fall into is allowing their sting to dictate our response. When someone is rude to us, we feel the urge to be rude back. When someone judges us, we start judging them in return. Without realizing it, we have handed over the keys to our inner temple. We have allowed their toxic nature to contaminate our own. But true spiritual strength, the kind of strength the monk possessed, is the ability to remain anchored in your own values, regardless of how others behave. Focusing on yourself doesn't mean you ignore the world, it means you choose your actions based on who you are, not based on what they did. If you consider yourself a person of kindness, be kind even to the unkind. If you value peace, remain peaceful even in the midst of a storm. When you stop reacting to every sting, you stop being a victim of your environment. You realize that you don't have to fix the scorpion's nature. You only have to master your own. Ask yourself today, is my behavior a reflection of my own soul, or am I just echoing the negativity of others? The moment you decide that your inner peace is more important than winning an argument or getting even with a toxic person, you become truly free. You become like the monk, unshakable, focused, and profoundly at peace, even when the river of life is rushing and the scorpions are nearby. Part 4. Demystifying the mind, how to actually focus inward. So, how do we actually master our own nature? How do we turn our focus inward when the world outside is so overwhelmingly loud? The answer, of course, lies in our minds. But unfortunately, most of us approach our own minds in the completely wrong way. Many people complain that when they try to sit quietly, when they try to meditate or focus on themselves, their mind suddenly becomes a noisy highway of thoughts. They feel worried, frustrated, and they think, I cannot stop my thoughts, I must be doing this wrong. If you have ever felt this way, please take a deep breath and relax. You are not doing anything wrong. The reason for this frustration is a massive misconception about what meditation actually is. We are taught to believe that meditation is the act of emptying the mind. We think it means closing the doors, shutting the windows, and forcing all thoughts to disappear. But trying to force your mind to stop thinking is like trying to flatten the waves of the ocean with your hands. The more you splash, the more chaotic the water becomes. The very act of trying to stop your thoughts is, in itself, a thought. The nature of the mind is to generate thoughts, just as the nature of the heart is to beat. You cannot stop it by force. Instead of fighting the mind, Buddhism teaches us a profound practice called Sittanupasana, which means the contemplation or observation of the mind. The Buddha introduced this wonderful method not to empty the mind, but to simply be aware of what is entering it. Imagine your mind is like a little, curious child. When a toddler is left unattended and unobserved, they might run around, make a mess, and do a lot of naughty things. Why? Because no one is watching. But the moment you, as a loving parent, simply sit down and quietly pay attention to that child, their behavior changes. They stop running wild because they know they are being observed. They naturally begin to settle down. Your thoughts act in the same way. Let's say a thought of deep anger or craving enters your mind. It is okay. You are human, everyone feels these emotions. The problem is not the thought itself. The problem is that most people are completely unaware that their mind has been hijacked by that emotion. They instantly become angry. They blindly follow the craving. But if you can become the gentle observer, if you can simply detect that emotion when it arises, everything changes. You can look at the thought and softly say to yourself, ah, there is a thought of anger popping up. Ah, there is a thought of judgment. Look at your mind as if you are watching clouds pass across a vast, open sky. You do not try to stop the clouds. You do not chase after them. You just watch them appear, change shape, and eventually fade away. When you identify the thought and become aware of it, it loses its power over you. It begins to quiet down on its own, just like the toddler who knows they are being lovingly watched. The more you practice this gentle observation, the less you will be pulled into the drama of other people's lives. When you are busy observing the rise and fall of your own inner landscape, you simply do not have the time or the desire to find faults in anyone else. You bring yourself back to the present moment, which is the only place where true inner peace can ever exist. Next time your mind feels busy, do not fight it. Just watch it. Be the quiet observer of your own internal universe. Part 5, Cultivating Your Inner Sanctuary. Ladies and gentlemen, as we reach the end of our time together today, I want to leave you with one final thought. In life, you will constantly come across people you do not understand, behaviors you do not agree with, and words that might sting. But in every single one of those moments, you hold a profound power, the power to choose. You can choose to react with negativity, letting the darkness of others dim your light. Or, you can choose to respond with positivity, remaining firmly rooted in your own inner peace. Focusing on yourself is not an act of selfishness, it is the ultimate act of taking responsibility for your own soul. When you stop trying to fix the world and start nurturing your own mind, the world naturally begins to look brighter. You stop seeing enemies, and you start seeing fellow human beings who are simply struggling on their own path. If this message brought you a sense of clarity or comfort today, please consider subscribing to Buddha Coha and clicking the notification bell so we can continue this beautiful journey of mindfulness together. I would also love to hear from you. Have you ever encountered a scorpion in your life, and how did you manage to protect your own peace? Share your story in the comments below. Your words might be the exact medicine someone else needs to read today. Thank you so much for your time, your presence, and your beautiful energy. Keep focusing on your own light, keep nurturing your own garden, and may you always find peace within. Namo Buddha.